What's up, guys? I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into episode 1 of the Thomas Mott Show. Yes, a lot of you guys have been DMing me on Twitter saying, Thomas, when are you going to start your own show? When are you going to have either a podcast or a show that we can watch to go ahead and consume all of our Eagles content? And this is it. It's officially here. If you're brand new, because this is episode 1, you're probably a brand new subscriber. I appreciate that. But I want to jump into all the crazy stuff that's been happening around your Philadelphia Eagles, our Philadelphia Eagles, over the past couple of days, and give you my takes and my thoughts. So welcome to the channel. We're going to get more into, of course, what the channel is going to look like. There are going to be a lot of changes that are going to come next couple of days and weeks, maybe some new lighting, maybe some new graphics, but I wanted to jump on here and at least give you guys episode 1 of the Thomas Mott Show. Focus is going to be all Eagles. I mean, 99% of this show is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. It's my favorite team. It's your favorite team. That's what you want to hear about, so that's where our focus is going to be. But at the end of every single show, as you'll see today, we're going to get into the big national NFL story of the day and break that down, maybe from an Eagles perspective as well. And we'll talk about Russell Wilson's deal, which will affect Jalen Hurts. It'll be at the end of today's show. Also, at the end of today's show, more details on the upcoming podcast that we're going to go ahead and launch and what to expect from the Thomas Mott Show as it goes ahead and hopefully grows into your favorite Eagles show that you can consume almost on a daily basis. So without further ado, let's go and jump into our very first story of the day, the story that came out just the other day, and that is the Jalen Reagor trade, which honestly is very, very interesting to go ahead and look at because Jalen Reagor is no longer an Eagle, which, let's just be real about this, this is a good thing. I mean, this is 100% a very, very good thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's start with the breakdown. What did Philadelphia actually get for Jalen Reagor? And honestly, as you read through the NFL.com article that you see up on your screen right now, it's absolutely incredible what Howie Roseman was actually able to go ahead and pull off. So as you see here, Philadelphia Eagles are trading for a first-round receiver, Jalen Reagor, to the Minnesota Vikings for a 2023 7th-round draft pick, and a 2024 conditional 4th-round selection, which can actually be a 5th round if it goes back in case he doesn't play as much. So a conditional draft pick, which honestly makes a ton of sense for both football teams because if Reagor plays well, Philadelphia wants an overall better return for it. And if he plays terribly, the Vikings are like, hey, we don't want to give you too much. So that is absolutely incredible. But as it says here, Reagor's time in the city of brotherly love was far from joyous. The 2020 first-round pick arrived as what Eagle fans hope would be the unquestioned top receiver for the franchise for years to come, but he never came close to fulfilling that dream. Instead, Reagor, who was the number 21 overall pick in 2020, struggled as a rookie, catching just 31 of 54 targets in 11 games and missed 5 games due to a torn ligament in his thumb. And so you go through this and you just kind of ask, how did Howie Roseman actually get someone to give up draft picks for Jalen Reagor? How do you convince the Vikings to take this guy for actual compensation? I've tweeted a lot on my official Twitter account, @RealThomasMott, saying that, one, I would keep Reagor on the roster, but it was more to the fact that I didn't think anyone would take him. Like, who wants to go ahead and take a guy who was the number 21 overall pick just a couple of years ago and never even came close to being, like, a good number 3 wide receiver? Like, can you even think back to a Jalen Reagor game or a game where Jalen Reagor actually played well? Because as I go through them, like, you really can't. The guy has been an absolute bust, and the fact that, again, yes, it's a 7th-round draft pick in 2023, but a 4th in 2024 is really, really good overall return on investment for a guy who was just never going to make it in Philadelphia. It was time to go ahead and let him go, and the fact to get a trade partner for him is absolutely fantastic. This also goes to show you how confident Philadelphia is in their top 4 wide receivers, because there was this idea that if you weren't confident in Zach Pascal, then maybe you'd go ahead and keep Reagor to go ahead and compete with Zach Pascal, but they're very clearly in on A.J. Brown, obviously Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins as your 3, and Zach Pascal, as we saw a lot of in the preseason, which seemingly was a favorite target of whoever was at quarterback at the time. Most notably, Gardner-Johnson played a lot with Zach Pascal in those preseason games. So again, it goes to show you that Philadelphia very confident in their top 4. Those are going to be their main guys, and then as we'll see when we get to the depth chart a little bit later on in today's show, they have some practice squad guys they're going to kind of, grow around and bring around and maybe upgrade to the active roster when needed, but what they have right now in those 4, they feel extremely good about them, and honestly, I feel great about them as well. They should be absolutely fantastic. Fun little tweet here I want to throw up on your screen from my good buddy RJ Ochoa, who is I think he's like the lead contributor, the editor-in-chief, whatever you call it, from Blogging the Boys, the Dallas Cowboys SB Nation website. But buddy of mine, I've hosted shows with him a long time ago in the past. Really good with the Cowboys. Now, we hate the Cowboys, but still, this is funny. So he quote tweets the Adam Schefter overall a tweet here and says the Eagles are sending wide receiver to Reagor to the Minnesota Vikings, and he says if this stays a 4th-round pick, the Eagles got more for Jalen Reagor than the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper. You think back to the Amari Cooper trade to the Cleveland Browns. It's absolutely incredible that if this holds, and a 4th-round draft pick in 2 years, it could be more than what the Cowboys actually went ahead and got for Amari Cooper. So fantastic job by Howie Roseman. More on him in just a little bit. But right now, Philadelphia, they have their 4 wide receivers. These are their main guys, and Reagor didn't make the cut. And honestly, I wish him nothing but the best, except for in week 2, whenever his first road game was at Philadelphia. A lot of boost in that one. But he was just never going to work. It was never going to work in Philadelphia. After the first season, you kind of realized it, and the fact they got some compensation for him is really, really good. Okay, let's go over here to our next story, and this is a big story. And this is the one that broke yesterday that absolutely blew my socks off, and I had to just jump on here and get episode 1 of this show launched. And that is the trade for the Saints defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Tuesday. This was so mind-blowing because forever, I mean, all the talk over the past offseason was Jesse Bates, right? Philadelphia is going to make a trade for Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates does not want to go ahead and, stay as a Cincinnati Bengal, and so it's going to happen. Well, that never did, and Bates eventually reported to camp. Eventually, he's going to play under his franchise tag, and so you kind of just thought, hey, this is what they're going to do at safety. Epps and Anthony Harris, right? Those are going to be your 2 guys. They're not going to make any more moves. That'll be the one weak spot on this defense, although Epps and Anthony Harris, they're not terrible. It wouldn't be the worst safety tandem in the league, but not, top 10, right, for instance. Then you have this. We'll throw you guys up the article from ESPN to give you some of the compensation here. Philadelphia, quote, received Garnder-Johnson from the Saints for a 2025 7th-round draft pick and a 2023 5th-round draft pick, and they got the 7th-round draft pick, and then, of course, received the 2023 5th-round draft pick, and then, of course, the later of 2 6th-round draft picks in 2024. So, pennies on the dollar. I mean, literally pennies on the dollar. Now, the catch is, of course, as you guys probably know by now, he's on the final year of his rookie deal. You see that here. Garnder-Johnson is in the last year of his rookie deal and was seeking a new contract. He did not fully participate in practice during the beginning of camp, sitting out of team drills, and at times just doing walkthroughs, effectively holding in while asking for a no deal, end quote. And so he wanted a new deal, and that honestly makes sense. I mean, come on, if you're one of the star safeties in this league, and they're not looking like they're going to go ahead and extend you past your rookie deal, why play the final year of your deal? So the Lamar Jackson situation, why pay the final year of your deal where you could get hurt and then make way less? And so Philadelphia says, hey, we'll take him for a year, he comes over here, and if he plays well, they're going to give him a new contract. Now, they haven't done that yet, and whether they're going to do an A.J. Brown situation where they trade for him and then sign him to a brand new deal, or they wait a little bit, I'm not sure. But what you are getting here is one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the league that's overlooked on Twitter right now. He does play a lot of nickel if you needed him to. I think Devontae Maddox is pretty good. Does play some nickel, but also is going to go ahead and be the starting safety, and that seems to be the big storyline that the Eagles are really going to try to go ahead and use him for, and that to me is absolutely fantastic for Philadelphia right now. So essentially, you are setting yourself up for what looks like the greatest secondary Philadelphia has had in a very, very long time. Now, I don't want to go ahead and rip on Malcolm Jenkins because he was fantastic. He was great, but Jenkins was never around elite cornerbacks. You go back to the Super Bowl year, and you can talk about Jalen Mills, who played very, very well that year, but was he elite? Now, you have Marcus Epps, who by all reports had a fantastic camp. You have a true young budding star at safety in Garnder-Johnson, who is just everything you want in an Eagles safety. Really, really good. Can cover, can hit you, gets physical, gets up in your face, is not afraid to go ahead and mix things up a little bit. And then you have 2 great cornerbacks. You have James Bradbury on one side and Darius Slate on the other side. This is the best secondary Philadelphia has had in a very, very long time. And the fact they were able to pull this off almost a week, a little over a week before the season, it just goes to show, and this is interesting, where have all the Howie haters gone? Have you noticed this on Twitter? And I gauge a lot of Eagle fans, or a lot of the Eagle fan base, based off of tweets. And I know that, 10% of the Eagle fan base is on Twitter. Not everybody's on Twitter. But do you remember just a couple of years ago, you go to the Carson Wentz, saga, and then the drafting of Jalen Hurts, and people were always talking about, and I said it on my Twitter account too, what's Howie doing? Does it make sense? Howie Roseman has had one of the best off seasons in recent NFL history from an NFL GM perspective. That is not a bloviated statement from an Eagles fan. And Eagle fans will say that, but go around the league right now. Everybody is taking notice of what Philadelphia is doing. And the fact they were able to pull this one off goes to show that Howie is a wizard. And yes, he does struggle in the draft. We just talked about Jalen Reagor, and Reagor has obviously been an absolute bust. But every single team has busts. I mean, look at what the Las Vegas Raiders did during the Mike Mayock era. They've gotten rid of or not re-signed pretty much all of their rookies, whereas Philadelphia has had some busts, J.J. Whiteside, Jalen Reagor, but they also, in a lot of these drafts, are able to hit on players as well, therefore forming a very, very solid roster. It all comes into full circle here when you realize Philadelphia has no holes on their defense. I mean, literally 0 holes in their defense. This is a top 3 defensive line. This is a top 10 linebacking core. We'll see what Kyzir White is able to do, but I mean, top 10, top 15, still very, very good. Probably the weakest link, but not that weak. You have a top 3 cornerback duo. I mean, literally a top 3 cornerback duo. They are stacked at cornerback right now. And the safety tandem is going to be really, really good depending on what Marcus Epps does this year. Still top 10, top 15 in the league. They have no holes on this defense. They plugged the final hole. And yet, even though I've been saying on my Twitter account, I really think that this team, as is a playoff team and an NFC East championship team, this just plugged the final hole, and so you have to sit back and guarantee it. I was watching SportsCenter today during lunch, and they had Marcus Spears talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, and even Marcus Spears, Swagoo as they call him, the Dallas Cowboy through and through, even he kind of sat back and went, oh man, talking to Sage Steele, he's like, man, the Eagles are the best roster, and they should win the NFC East, and they should be greatly feared in the NFC. And honestly, this isn't the only move that does it. It's the overall culmination of moves that Howie Roseman was able to pull off that makes this football team absolutely stacked, and this is a massive one. I cannot believe he was able to go ahead and pull it off. This is truly, as we'll talk about in a second, the best Eagles roster of my lifetime. And I've been alive 26 years. I've been watching Eagles since I was, 3, since I can remember. This is the best roster, and that is not just hyping you up for the season. It is the best roster I have seen ever for the Philadelphia Eagles during my lifetime. Okay, next story I want to go ahead and roll into here quickly is these practice squad additions, and really to go ahead and kind of sum up the 53-man roster because there weren't a lot of surprises. And I know a lot of people are talking about the roster on Twitter. There isn't a lot. We can start with the practice squad here. You get a lot of guys on this practice squad roster, 16 players. You can move people in and out, protect people every single year, but there aren't a lot of shockers. I mean, listen, LaRaven Clark is a great left tackle from a backup perspective, was never going to make the final roster. Kennedy Brooks slides in there as some running back depth. I liked what he was able to do in preseason. I like him there as well. Chauncey had a really good preseason, but not good enough to actually make it the final roster, right? I mean, we're talking about actually a roster spot. There's only 53. LaMichael Pirine, the running back from the Jets, a new addition there. Again, more running back help. Anthony Harris is a little bit interesting there. We're going to see what happens with him, but clearly they didn't like what he did in preseason, and starter last year, practice squad this year, shows you the upgrade that they got with Gardner-Johnson. Reed Sennett went ahead and made the practice squad. That's fine. Covey made the practice squad, not ready to play. Deon Cain, Devin Allen, not ready to go ahead and actually make the final roster, so they're both on the practice squad. Like, this is fine. There are no shockers here in terms of what Philadelphia did from a practice squad perspective. Maybe you make the case that Ian Book was a surprise, but everything we heard was that Carson Strong was never really that good. And so Carson Strong, gets let go. You wish him the best, but Ian Book at least has had some NFL experience, more so than Carson Strong, and so let him develop at cornerback university, or your quarterback factory as they call it, but sit on the practice squad. So no shockers on the practice squad. The only shock on the 53-man roster, we can pull it up here on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. I mean, very little, right? We can go through this. Very, very little shockers overall. Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, right? Gainwell Sanders-Scott, we knew that. Here are your 5 wide receivers. Again, Reagor is now off of that spot, and so they can elevate somebody, because this is posted after the Reagor, before the Reagor trade. Tight ends, Werner shock. Offensive linemen, 0 shock there. Sills had a really good camp, and so we can, move on from that. You go to the defensive line, 0 shockers here at all. Williams, curious what he does this year. Very much overlooked and very forgotten with the addition of Jordan Davis. Linebacker is the one interesting part here, and this is very interesting, the fact that they did waive Davion Taylor today, and this is obviously, again, from the Philadelphia Eagles website that was from yesterday, so he's still on here, but he was waived today, and we'll talk more about that in a second, but that was a big surprise. Corners, no shock there. Obviously, safeties, this changes a little bit. With Garnder-Johnson, Wallace makes the roster, which is big for him. It was questionable there. A lot of people on Twitter, and then, of course, your specialist. But the real surprise here, as we go over to the Bleeding Green Nation, was the waiving of Davion Taylor. I have really hyped up Davion Taylor since he came to Philadelphia. I mean, think about a 3rd-round draft pick who was really promised to be kind of that outside linebacker coming into 2020 who eventually could mold into a starting spot, and he just, I guess, struggled in preseason. Like, I don't remember watching him a lot during preseason the past couple of games, but last year, pre-injury, I thought he was playing really good football. What this goes to show you, truly, is that Philadelphia loves Nakobe Dean, and they love Kyzir White. And I'm a big White fan. One of the most underrated signings because there were so many this year. You kind of, we signed Kyzir White, and then you move on to A.J. Brown and Jordan Davis, the draft pick, and all that sort of stuff. But I think he was the big moving factor here and getting rid of Davion Taylor. I think Sean Bradley has progressed a lot from a special teams perspective, and so they wanted to keep him versus Taylor. Now, this does go back to the Howie Roseman situation of poor draft picks, but you got to remember, of the 2020 draft picks, they still had some solid players. I mean, you go through this, right? You have Hurts, you have Sean Bradley, you have Jack Driscoll, great backup offensive lineman, Quez Watkins. Like, sure, you have the Reagor and the Taylor and the Hightower who was cut, but overall, it still goes to show you that he's still making some solid draft picks overall. This is the best roster of my lifetime, and I think it's very, very important to go ahead and finish the roster conversation on this note. We've seen some good rosters. The 2017 roster was great, but not a lot of us went into 2017 saying this is a Super Bowl roster. They grew into a Super Bowl roster. Everybody is now talking about Philadelphia as at least a NFC, I'm not going to say dark horse, an NFC powerhouse, right? They should be right up there with the rest of the best of the NFC teams. If this team underperforms at any other position besides quarterback, it's going to be a massive failure because they're stacked everywhere. And hopefully Jalen Hurts is able to go ahead and grow from this, and Jalen Hurts is able to be the quarterback we hope that he can be. But this is the best roster I have seen in a very, very long time. And I think it's just so important to recognize that because, yes, it's you got to actually play on the football field. We got to wait and see, but it's fun to hype us up as we get closer and closer to the start of the actual NFL season. Okay, our big national story of the day, as I always say, the show from, episode 1 here until, thousands of episodes later, I always want to go ahead and slide in a national story just to quickly go ahead and hit on it at the end of the Eagles news. And I think the Russell Wilson extension is worth at least hitting on here as we pull up the NFL.com article. 5-year deal through 2028. They announced it this morning. $165 million guaranteed. I think he's just below Aaron Rodgers in terms of the actual money per year. He gets $49 million, whereas Rodgers gets $50.3. What we have to go ahead and notice about this is that the quarterback market is being reset right now. It was reset when Dak Prescott got his $40 million, and now it's been reset with Kyler Murray's $46 and Aaron Rodgers' $50 million, and now Russell Wilson's $49. Lamar is the next domino to fall. Let's just say that. Like Lamar is the next domino to go ahead and fall here, and his contract will very much go ahead and tell us what the Hurts contract is. But make no mistake, Philly will extend Jalen Hurts at the end of this year if he plays well. And he doesn't have to win a Super Bowl to go ahead and do that. You have to just go ahead and show me improved accuracy, improved decision-making, win more games than you lose, get us to the playoffs, and be competitive there. They could lose in the first round, and Hurts still play well, and he still gets a contract extension because teams are so desperate to find their guy and lock them in before they're worth $49 million a year. You could get Hurts for $41 at the end of this year, and it'd be an absolute steal. And so we got to wait for Lamar Jackson. That's going to come. And Lamar, it's taken a little bit, and I don't know if it's because he doesn't have an agent or he wants more money. I don't know. But know that this right here, the Denver Broncos signing Russell Wilson, will have an impact on Jalen Hurts and is why they should go ahead and sign him as quickly as possible once they know for sure, it's important, that he is going to go ahead and be the guy in 2023 and hopefully a lot further beyond than that. All right, there you go. There are all the stories I wanted to go and jump on here for episode 1 of the Thomas Mott Show. And again, there'll be a lot of changes to this. It's going to be fluid. It's going to be changing a lot here. But the goal is to make this very simple. I want it to be your favorite Eagles show that you can consume. I mean, simple, informative, fun. We're going to go ahead and obviously launch some other things in the future, maybe some graphics that I'm working on off-site. I was just recently decided to go ahead and make this a podcast, and so if you don't want to have your YouTube app up, then maybe you can go ahead and you have your Apple Podcast or your Spotify. We're going to work on that. We're going to go ahead and get that to you here in the near future. So, of course, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button and comment. Google says that's the easiest way for the algorithm to hopefully let you find the show. And so if you like that, go ahead and go down below and subscribe and help us grow this channel as quickly as possible. For the Thomas Mott Show, episode 1, it's so fun to go ahead and jump on here. I'm Thomas Mott, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day.